to a panelist related from the auditor's office. Do we have anybody else from the public?
We have two, Miranda and Rosanna, and
okay.
And Tiana from our district.
Okay, well, we will ask for public comments when we get to that portion of the agenda. Thank you all for attending. This is the meeting of the Del Mar Union School District Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure MM. At this point in time, I will turn it over to Michelle. Michelle, if you could do a roll call, please.
Neelam Arya. Ira Sharp.
Here.
Kathy Huang.
Here.
David Jackson.
Here.
Katie Hazen.
Here.
Samir Vora.
Here.
Usha Shin.
Here.
Thank you very much, everybody. Just as a point of order, Ira may have to leave the meeting before we're done. So unless there is objection from the committee members, I'm going to move item I on the agenda, which is the appointment of Citizens Oversight Committee appointments and term dates, up right after the minutes. So we'll take that so Ira can participate in that and then move on to item E. Anybody have any objection to that? Hearing none, seeing no bricks flying my way, I will ask if there are any public comments that any members of the public would like to submit at this point in time.
It looks like there is one, Rosanna. I'm going to go ahead and promote her to panelist.
Okay.
Okay, Rosanna, you're muted.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just had two comments. First was on item J. There was a statement that regarding the district litigation. If I may say, it summarizes that the litigation is arising from normal course of business, and it's not expected to have a material adverse effect on the overall financial position of the bond fund, which I thought was unusual. And my second point that I just wanted to bring up is from the independent auditor report on page 38 of the report, the last bullet item that talks about who can be on the committee. And it states that no employees and no vendors can be on, or consultants can be on the committee, yet the chairperson is hired by the district and is one of the leading law firms that you'll see paid in some of the invoices. So to me, that is a direct conflict of interest, and that's what I wanted to bring up.
Thank you for your comments. We'll talk about the officer and committee appointments under item I, and I'll answer that question relative to the committee membership. I believe your question relative to the litigation relates to the project update, which is on item H, which Kathy Burks will be discussing. But again, neither of those specific items is on the agenda, so we will cover them within the scope of already agendized items to the extent we can. So any other public comment, John?
We have one person, Miranda, but she did not fill out a request to speak form. I'm not sure.
No, she doesn't have to.
Okay.
She's free to attend without commenting.
Okay.
But you see no other requests, John?
No.
Okay. Moving on from item C to item D, you have the members of the committee who have the draft minutes from our December 7th meeting in front of you. Are there any changes, or do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
That's Ira with the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
That's Samir with the second. Any other discussion by any of the committee members? Hearing none, Michelle, would you take us through the roll call vote, please?
Neelam Arya. Ira Sharp,
Yes. Present.
Kathy Huang,
Yes.
David Jackson,
Yes.
Katie Hazen,
Yes.
Samir Vora,
Yes.
Usha Shin,
Yes.
Michelle, I'm just noting that when you turn away from the microphone, it's sometimes difficult to hear you.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, because we have Ira who may have to leave the meeting before it's over, I'm going to move us on to item I. And let me just give you a little bit of background about this. The committee is a Proposition 39 Citizens Oversight Committee. And in answer to the public, question from the member of the public, I am not a member of the committee. I do not vote. The committee has chosen to allow me to chair their meetings and to act as a moderator, but I am not a committee member. The committee is free to, and in fact, I have urged them to dispossess me of the chairperson office, and they have declined to do so. So again, I'm just acting as a moderator. I do not vote. My job is to take the committee through the agendized items and work with staff to agendize and discuss agenda items, which I'm allowed to do. But the committee ultimately sets the agenda, votes on items, and makes recommendations. But the issue we have is that under Proposition 39, you may remember in your notebooks that Citizens Oversight Committee members are appointed for a 2-year term. And in the case of some of the members, they fill the unexpired remainder of the term. Generally, the school district wants to try and keep all of the committee members on the same 2-year cycle. So we're approaching now and functionally pretty much right on top of the end of the first 2-year term. So one of the things that staff has asked me to do is to ask each of the committee members, and I'm just going to go in order as listed on the agenda, and allow each of the committee members to tell us, staff, the committee, whether or not you'd like to be reappointed for another 2-year term, or if you have a problem that would not allow you to continue, or if you would no longer qualify in the represented category. And that'll give staff some jump on working on bringing on new members, which I would think we would probably have for our next meeting, which will probably be 2 to 3 months downrange. So when we next convene, there will probably be at least one new face. Now, COC members can serve up to 3 consecutive 2-year terms for 6 years in a row if you want to. You're not obligated. Service on the committee is strictly voluntary. But again, we're just trying to get an idea of who we can expect to continue with the committee, because appointments will need to be made, and later on in the committee we will talk also about officer positions for the committee. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list and ask people kind of what their feelings or disposition is. Neelam, you're first up.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to actually end my term here in this meeting this evening.
Okay. And we don't need you to, and just for the committee members, if you choose not to continue, we don't need an explanation. It can be as simple as, I'm done here. If you want to provide an explanation, that's up to you. Ira.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to continue to participate. I've really enjoyed it. It's been interesting work, and I like working with the committee and the school district, but I'm not going to be able to continue.
Okay. And by the way, just for those members who will not be continuing on with the committee, the district may keep your name and contact information, because if we have a vacancy, you may be contacted to try and fill a vacancy in the future, which again will be completely up to you. Service on the committee, either by appointment or filling a vacancy, is optional. Kathy.
I would like to continue on.
Okay, thank you. David.
I am in good standing, but this will probably be my last, unless you need me. This will be my last meeting.
That, whether we need you or not will be up to staff and Mark and the other staff members to determine, how we can best fill the committee.
I'll remain flexible, but it's my intent not to continue on unless there's a gap or something happens. You need to call me back.
All right, thank you, David. Katie.
I'm happy to continue.
Okay, thank you. Samir.
So my term doesn't end till September, but next year I will not be eligible as a parent of the Del Mar USD enrolled student parent. So I would like to not continue anyway. I won't be eligible. If you want me at the next meeting, I can be there since my term doesn't end till September.
I think staff will be looking at who's saying yes, who's saying no in terms of filling that. Because again, we have to do the appointment between now and the next meeting. It'll be up to staff to kind of determine, and they may call you and say, okay, where are we at on that? I'm just trying to get an idea as we move through. Fusho.
I can continue.
Thank you. So it looks like we have about 3 members who would like to continue and 4 members who would not, which is about half of the committee. And one of the things that's sometimes helpful is to bring on new COC members so that, again, you're not bumping up against the prospect of having all of the COC term out at the same time, which I've had clients have that issue. And it's kind of embarrassing to, essentially have all 7 of your COC members term out and then have to bring a whole new COC on. It's very helpful to know who wants to continue, who doesn't, and we view the members who don't want to continue as kind of our reserve cadre. Again, you're probably the first people that staff will reach out to in the event of a vacancy, but again, keeping in mind that participation is strictly voluntary. That kind of covers item I. I would imagine that staff will be working with the board toward trying to fill those positions as we move toward our next meeting. Again, we are pretty much right at the end of the first 2-year term. And let me say on behalf of staff, and Holly McClurg may also want to say something, but I'd like to thank all of the COC members very much for your participation over the last 2 years.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Anslow, and thank you to all of you. This has been, and you are a wonderful COC, and your questions and input are highly valued by our staff team. You have an important job to do, and we appreciate your time very much and are very happy that several of you will be continuing with the COC. So thank you. Thanks for your involvement.
Okay, unless there's any other questions under item I, I'm going to move back to item E. Any other questions on item I before we leave that?
No.
If not, I'm going to turn item E over to Mark and Aubrey to discuss the audit report.
Thank you, Rob. And just before we start, I just wanted to echo Dr. McClurg's sentiment. It's been a pleasure working with everyone over these past 2 years. So thank you very much for your service on the Citizens Oversight Committee. For item E, tonight we have our review, receive and file the fiscal year 2019-2020 Measure MM Bond Funds annual audit report by Wilkinson, Headley, King and Company. Back in January 2020, we went out to RFP, which is a request for a proposal, a type of bid for an external audit services. This was for both our external financial audit and our Measure MM financial and performance audit. And we were happy to award the contract to Wilkinson, Headley, King. And tonight we have Aubrey Mann, who is a partner with Wilkinson, Headley, King, to give us a summary of the audit.
Hey everyone, I'm happy to be here with you today to present the audit report for Measure MM Building.
Aubrey?
Yes.
It's very difficult to hear you.
Okay, let me see if I can turn my speaker up. Does that make any difference at all?
Much better, thank you.
All right. I'm happy to be here today to talk about the audit of Measure MM Building Fund for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. I'm going to skip all the way to page 40 because this is a summary of our results of the audit on page 40.
Aubrey, when you say page 40, you're referring to page 40 numbered of your report?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is the 46th page on the PDF.
It's page 53 of the
page 53 if you're looking at the bottom right-hand corner of the report.
Okay. So we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which means that the financial statements as presented in this report do accurately reflect the financial position of the bond fund as of June 30th, 2020. We did not identify any internal control deficiencies or non-compliance, which is material to the financial statements. In addition, we did the performance audit as required by Proposition 39, the primary objective of which is to determine that the funds were spent in accordance with the bond measure and that the ICSC has complied with the requirements under Proposition 39 for the ICSC. And we did determine that the district and the ICSC are in compliance with those requirements. So that's a summary of the results of the audit. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on specific parts of the audit.
Okay, any of the COC members have any questions for Aubrey? I'm not seeing hands fly out. It is our recommendation, and it's not listed on the agenda, but it is generally a good idea for the committee to pass a motion to receive and file the audit report. So I will ask for a motion on that item.
I move to receive and file the copy of the audit report.
I have a motion from Neelam. Do I have a second? I'm sorry? Katie, is that a second?
Second, yeah.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Actually, no discussion on the motion, but could I ask a question of Aubrey?
Sure.
On your page 22 of the audit, I think it's page 22, it's annual requirements to amortize the bond outstanding at June 30th, 2020. I had a question in regards to the total interest there of $24,276,609, and how I would tie that into just below it when it talks about the premium and discount. I don't know how to tie them out.
I'm not going to tie exactly because
okay.
Aubrey, I can probably answer that better than you can.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because again, just for those members of the public joining us, our firm acted as the district's bond counsel for the issuance of the Series A bonds. Premium and discount refer to the actual purchase price of the series of bonds at the time that they were sold, which was in 2019. That premium or discount does not need to be repaid. It is essentially a purchase decision made by the purchaser whether to buy the bonds at 100 cents of the dollar, something less or something more. In this case, the purchasers purchased the bonds for more than 100 cents on the dollar in exchange for an interest rate markup, very, very small. So the premium or discount is not factored into the repayment cost. The principal and interest that you see on page 22 or page 32, if you're looking in the right-hand corner, that is the total amount that the district owes for the repayment of the bonds. So premium and discount are not factored into that yet. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is helpful, but I kind of expected to see that the total interest payments on the bonds would tie to the sum total of the different years.
So the reason that those are different, Kathy, is because the top schedule, the interest as of June 30th, that's what remains. Some interest has already been paid. The premium discount total interest is all of the interest on the bond from the beginning.
Okay, so the difference between the two is interest that's already been paid. Correct. As of June 30th, 2020?
2020, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
So any other questions for COC members before we vote on the motion? If not, Michelle, could you take us through the roll call, please?
Neelam Arya,
Aye. Yeah.
Ira Sharp,
Aye.
Kathy Huang,
Yes.
David Jackson,
Yes.
Katie Hazen,
Yes.
Samir Vora,
Yes.
Usha Shin,
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes item E. We'll move on to item F on the agenda. Aubrey, we love to have you stay, but if you don't feel like staying because you're done, please feel free to sign off.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Moving on to item F, one of the requirements under Proposition 39 for a Citizens Oversight Committee is that the committee has to issue one, quote, report, unquote, as set out in the statutes on an annual basis. The statutes give very little guidance as to what needs to be in that report, but there are a series of best practices, recommendations, and findings contained in the other statutes, which have been put together in various types of reports. Reports range from as simple as 1 page to as lengthy as 20 pages, and sometimes include the audit report, which we do here. What you're seeing beginning on, if you look in the bottom right-hand or upper right-hand corner, page 56, this is the draft Citizens Oversight Committee annual report for the period covering 2019 through 2020. You may remember that the committee approved a prior annual report, but we didn't have the audit. And at that point in time, there have been very few meetings. Here we've now conducted a full year within the referenced fiscal year, plus we have the audit report to attach, which, by the way, a clean audit is always a good thing. Yeah. It contains a description of the Citizens Oversight Committee, the officers, a web page, and a series of findings that are contained in the form of the report. The report was put together by a combination of our firm and district staff input. It's presented for your consideration, but again, this is your report as the committee members. So open to a motion to approve or discussion or any amendments that people feel are necessary.
I'd move to approve it.
That's a motion to approve in the form presented?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. That's Neelam.
That's Neelam, thank you. And it does help us to have you say your name as you're doing a second or a motion, because that way we know who to ascribe it to. Is there any other discussion on the recommendation and the motion? I'm not seeing hands. I'm sorry, Kate, Kathy?
The only thing I saw was on the bottom of page 58, number 3. I think it's just a typo. The COC expects to visit schools and project sites. So it's, I think, just a typo. It says visited.
Oh, it should say visit rather than visited. I see that. Okay, well, Michelle can fix that when we do the final.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, Michelle, would you take us through the roll call, please?
Neelam Arya,
Yes.
Ira Sharp,
Yes.
Kathy Huang,
Yes.
David Jackson,
Yes.
Katie Hazen,
Yes.
Samir Vora,
Yes.
Usha Shin.
Yes.
Thank you to the members of the committee. At this point in time, we're going to move to item G, which is a presentation on the bond payment log, and I'll turn it over to Mark. Where did Mark go? Oh, there he is. Okay, Mark, you're on.
I'm here. I think John was having a little difficulty, so I'm just going to bring up the expenditure report. Okay, I think you can see my screen now, or you might have it in front of you. Tonight, I am presenting the expenditures through February 28th, 2021. Our last report was through November 30th, 2020. So we have about 3 months worth of expenditures. The first page, page 64, is a summary of Measure MM commitments. We have current and completed projects by school site. We currently have, of the 186 million that's authorized, we have committed just under 102 million out of that 186 million, leaving us with about 84 million left in future projects. So we can see that column A is the school and project, column B is the commitments, column C is the expenditures to date, and then column D is the remaining balance of the commitments. And the final column is whether or not the project is in progress or completed.
By the way, I will just say to the committee members as Mark moves through his report, if you have a question or want to ask something, wave your hand or speak up so we know to be able to answer your questions as we move through. Thank you.
The next page, we have the Del Mar Heights School Rebuild Project. We have a budget increase of about 187,000. This was due to, you'll see on the next page, but additional costs for permits, legal fees, and because the project has been delayed, we're estimating another 65,000 for portables for the next school year for the relocation of the students. The next page is a more detail of the project commitments. As I had mentioned, the increase due to legal fees. We paid some permit fees to the city of San Diego, and we have PlaceWorks, a preliminary contract to begin work on the focused environmental impact report, which Kathy will speak to more later in the project update. For the detailed expenditures, I just want to point out one line item where we have this negative 50,000. We received a reimbursement for our legal fees on the litigation from our liability insurance. We participate in the San Diego County Joint Powers Authority, so we received a $50,000 reimbursement towards the legal fees.
Hey, Mark, I know you have gone over this in the past, but can you just remind me, like you talked about needing to bring over that, I think it was $65,000 for portables for an extra year. Can you remind me where that money comes from, like to increase the budget?
We have an overall project contingency, but it's been used up on this project. But we also have budgeted contingency on the overall bond. So we still have this remaining 84 million, and it'll be pulling from that 84 million.
So Mark, this is Kathy. Would all of the 186,681 budget adjustments be coming from the total Measure MM contingency then?
That is correct.
Okay. Another question. This is your best estimate right now, but is there a time where you would be comfortable that there wouldn't be any additional add-ons to the budget for legal fees or some of these other items? Because I guess my concern is, I know this is the best guess as of right now, but and there was some mention by the public who was wondering if whether or not the legal actually cost of the lawsuit would be material in the long run, or as the report had stated, that it wouldn't have a material effect. Could anybody address that and kind of give us a little bit more background on it?
Thank you for that question, Kathy. So currently we're in the process of performing a focused environmental impact report, which was part of the ruling that the court provided. And once that is complete, then we will have more information on how we'll be moving forward. But after that, we also have to approve a guaranteed maximum price on the actual construction of the school, because right now we only have a increment 1, which is for the site, the demolition and site work. And so we'll also be approving increment number 2. And at that point, we should be pretty set on the budget, because that's a guaranteed maximum price from the construction. And I hope that by that time the litigation will be done, because we'll be starting construction.
Okay, thank you.
The additional environmental review expenses, are they already budgeted?
So we did anticipate having to do more environmental review after the litigation began. So it is budgeted as part of the budget.
Which line? Oh, sorry. Which line item would that be, Mark?
On page 65, it's part of the other site costs, that 4th line.
Thank you.
And that was increased for the permits, additional permit fees that we had. Okay, if there's no other questions, then we can go on to Pacific Highlands Ranch, school number 9.
I had one question, Mark. So the legal fees that were for Delmar Heights School, are they going to be coming out of the Delmar Heights School budget, or do they get passed on to district-wide? How does that factor in?
At this point, we went through a whole process with the community to determine the school needs. And so we have an initial budget for the school construction. So at this time, we're not touching that, because we feel like our design is appropriate and meets our needs. So at this time, we're not reducing the construction cost on the overall project. So it is coming from potential future projects. But as I had mentioned, we do have an overall bond contingency on the entire bond program.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on page 68, which is the Pacific Highlands Ranch budget. We still have our budget at 70 million. To date, we have just over 13 million and about 56 million left in expenditures. We did have a few new contracts and permits required. We had coastal development fee permits that we paid, and OPR Architecture is assisting us in moving forward with our coastal development permit process. On page 70 is the detailed expenditures, and I just wanted to highlight one expenditure, which is a negative. We received a refund from the San Diego Gas and Electric Company for some design engineering fees. We were within our allowance, so they provided us a refund. And I also wanted to highlight the asterisk means that those fees, those invoices are being paid by the CFD 99-1.
What that means for all the committee members is that those expenditures are not coming out of Measure MM funds. They're part of the total project cost, but they're not coming out of Measure MM.
How do you determine what comes out of the Measure MM versus the CFD 99-1?
Well, the CFD funds are a little less restrictive than the Measure MM funds. So that's why we decided to put the legal fees towards the CFD funds. We always want to use our most restrictive funds first. And so, sorry, we have flexibility with those funds. So we put the legal fees there.
Mark, then going forward, are there going to be a lot of funds that are coming from the CFD expenditure? Because then I'm wondering if that current, the current expenditure column will get kind of, it'd be commingled. So is there like a total dollar amount that will be coming from the CFD versus Measure MM, and then would it be better that we had two columns and tracking them separately?
We do have on page 68 under the funding sources. So for CFD, which is Community Facilities District 99-1, we have budgeted about 47 million to be coming from that. And so we did issue a separate bond to help pay for the construction of the school, which is funded by Melrose taxes. And so we have a balance of 36 million to be paid from those funds. And so right now we're anticipating that we'll be charging the construction to that account, just because that's kind of the big vendor, the main cost. So it'll be able to use up those CFD funds.
Okay, mainly because so far that's been really land acquisition. Is that correct?
Right.
And then in the future, you anticipate coding most of the actual construction costs to the CFD versus Measure MM?
That's correct.
Okay, except for these few legal fees that you did this time, the last couple of months. Okay.
The vendor is Erickson Hall that'll be doing the construction.
Okay.
And just I'm sorry, and just to remind the committee that this Pacific Highlands Ranch is funded with community facility funds from CFD 99-1, as well as Measure MM. And Measure MM was to support the funding of the school because there was not sufficient funds through special taxes to be able to build the school entirely. So as we move forward and expending these funds, we will definitely look at a way where it is clear that it shows the monies coming from the CFD versus the monies coming from the Measure MM. So thanks for pointing that out, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, so I just had one question, right? As a strategy, I guess we will be exhausting the CFD money completely and then taking the rest from Measure MM, or that's, I guess, is the strategy here, because there's always like, what comes from where question here, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
And because Erickson Hall, the construction will be the biggest vendor, it's easiest for the CFD funds not to have multiple as many vendors, because we do have to make those payments separately. Our funds are held with the Union Bank. So the plan is to have the major construction come from that, and it will use up those funds.
And just as a reminder, the CFD 99-1 was for the purpose of building a community neighborhood school. So we would definitely want to be able to use those funds in accordance with it is the way that the CFD was put together.
Okay, next we will be on page 71. And we have a project that was completed in the fall, which was our Sage Canyon School HVAC controller project. And we installed something that's called iView, which is an energy management system. In this came to a total project cost of just under $109,000. And we had two vendors there, Landmark Mechanical and Russell Sigler.
Mark, was the estimate just a little bit too high and that's why there's a negative reduction instead of an addition?
Correct, it was just adjusting the budget to the actual. Next, we have another completed project that occurred over the summer, the Tory Hills School Field Upgrade. We had budgeted $993,000. The project came in a little under the budget, so we adjusted that to actual and we ended up at $929,000.
Mark, would the reduction in these budgets go back into the contingency for the total Measure MM funds, or what happens to that?
That's correct. It would fall to the contingency for the entire bond. Next, we have the Delmar Hills Modernization Project. We have budgeted just under 20 million. We did make a budget adjustment of 550,000 to adjust for the field project, which was separate. So I did have to reduce this budget since originally I had budgeted the field with this project, but now that it's a separate project, I moved it to its own project. So that's why you'll see some reductions. And then we did award a contract to the architect, Lionakis, of about 1.1 million. So that's the increase on the architect fee. So we're in the beginning planning phase for this. And then finally, we have the Delmar Hills Academy field upgrade, which we have budgeted at 550,000, and there has been no expenditures in this quarter for that project.
Do you have any other questions for Mark on item G? Not hearing any. Thank you, Mark. With that, we'll move to Measure MM project update, and that's Kathy.
Thank you. And I'll just wait for John to pull up the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, John. And we can go on to the next page. But before we go on, I just wanted to also express gratitude and appreciation to the COC committee and the time you've spent these past 2 years serving. It's much appreciated. And I look forward to the ones that are staying on for the continued service on this committee. So thank you. This evening, I'd like to present on the Delmar Heights School rebuild and the Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9. We can go on to the next slide regarding to the Delmar Heights School rebuild. The district has received DSA approval on increment 1 site work, and that includes demolition, rough grading, underground utilities in June of 2020. And increment 2 for the remaining part of the project, and that would be new buildings, site paving, and landscaping and other site features, which was approved in November 2020. Both these are a great accomplishment for this project. Splitting the project into the 2 increments was done to provide the contractor flexibility to start the site work early in the summer of 2020 while awaiting DSA approval for increment 2. The court gave their decision on the lawsuit on February 8th. The court concluded that the description of the district's project was detailed and all-encompassing, and the litigants' challenge lacked merit. The litigants asked the court to order the district to prepare a full environmental impact report on the entire project. The court refused this request. Of the 13 complaints, 10 were without merit. This decision demonstrates that the district acted responsibly, and there are only a few areas that will need additional studies to be performed. These are biological resources, which was due to the proposed modification to the stormwater outfall pipes for the southern maritime chaparral habitat and another endangered plant species. Also construction noise. The third item was traffic on Mira, Montana. The board approved to remove the stairs and the ADA ramp from the project. The coastal development permit is on hold due to the lawsuit. Next slide, please. Thanks, John. These are the community design priorities regarding the site. It was an exhaustive process, and anyone in the community who wanted to participate could. We listened and we applied community priorities to the design. The school design incorporates the community priorities to reduce traffic or vehicle congestion, improve pedestrian safety, maximize on-site vehicle queuing, maximize parking, maintain neighborhood views, and emergency vehicle access. Next slide, please. These are the community priorities regarding the building. This design incorporates these features: campus interconnection, flexibility and adaptability, indoor and outdoor learning spaces, collaboration and transparency, natural light and fresh air, access to views, flexible technology, and centrally located multi-use space. Next slide, thank you, John. Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9. Once the coastal permit is received, construction can begin. The Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9 is anticipated to open in August of 2022, but due to the delay, the kitchen and the after-school program rooms may not be completed by the start of the 22-23 school year. And next slide. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm sorry, were there any questions from committee members?
I just had a quick question. Kathy, the coastal development permit that you said was delayed, was that at Pacific Highlands Ranch or was that at the Del Mar Heights, for Del Mar Heights?
So the delay is at Pacific Highlands Ranch.
Okay.
Because of the review process with the city. It is taking a little bit longer than what we had projected. So, but we're still anticipating the August opening, and the coastal development permit has not moved forward due to the lawsuit on Del Mar Heights.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I had a question, like how is the kitchen and the after school programs get impacted? Is that due to coastal development permit, or is it just like the delay in start of the project and you have to prioritize some things over the other?
That's exactly right, Samir. Thank you. So our priority are the children and getting them into the classroom. And so as the contractors are looking at the site, we look at safety for the students and what is going to provide the least disturbance. And so it was decided that we could hold off on doing the kitchen and the after school programs, and that it shouldn't affect the students as they're going to school, and then continue on with the construction. Hopefully, maybe, it could open, but we'd like just to say at this time, we're projecting that it may not be open. It should be done soon thereafter when school does start.
Yeah. With the delay, with the delay in the Del Mar Heights rebuild at this point be anticipated to be 1 full year, or I think there was something said about the portable costs going up. Is the anticipation it'll be one full school year delay?
The opening of the Del Mar Heights School is to be determined. Currently, we're projecting that our students or the students from that site will still be displaced from the Del Mar Heights School and will have to continue to either go to the Del Mar Hills Academy or the Ocean Air School, and which is quite unfortunate because we were on track. But due to the lawsuit, it's been delayed. So when the school will open, I do not have that time.
And Kathy, will the district continue to provide busing for those students that need, or I mean, I guess they probably haven't been doing that this year. What's the outlook for busing next year?
Yes, the district has been providing busing for the 4th through 6th graders to Ocean Air School. We have 2 stops for them. And so we will continue next year with transportation for those students going to Ocean Air School. Pusha, I think you had a question.
It's already covered. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate the presentation. So that takes us through item H. We've already done item I. Item J is probably not something that we're going to need to, the committee is going to need to take action on at this meeting. But since both our committee vice president and clerk will not be continuing as we see it right now, just be aware that at our next meeting of the Citizens Oversight Committee, the 3 offices, chairperson, vice chairperson, and clerk, will all need to be filled. I remain, ready to, continue to act as your chair, your interim chair and moderator, but I cheerfully invite you to dispossess me of that office. But we will need a vice president and clerk moving forward. So hopefully we will be able to inform all of these continuing committee members who the new committee members will be. We may have an orientation for the new COC members. That may be as part of a COC meeting, or it may be part of a briefing with them prior to the meeting. We'll have to work through that with staff. But just be aware that the officer positions are going to come up for election at our next meeting, if not before. Probably at the next meeting. So thank you all for that. Any questions on item J? If not, we will move to the excitement of picking our next meeting. In keeping with our target, that would put us at late May or early June. If we stay with Monday, we might want to think about June 7th. That's just a suggestion. If anybody has a problem with that date, and really we're looking at the 3 continuing members to kind of voice their views on the meeting, since the non-continuing meeting members won't be part of that meeting. So ladies, does June 7th work for you ladies?
I would like to propose not meeting on Mondays.
Okay.
Because if anybody is traveling on the weekend, it makes it difficult to prepare for the meeting on a Monday evening. So if anybody else, the rest of the 3 ladies and you, Robert, Rob.
I work for you. I work for you ladies and the district, so I accommodate your needs. If you want to look at another day of the week, I think staff would probably prefer it not be a Friday. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, look to staff to see if there's any date that's better or worse for other people. Might suggest then June 8th. That's a Tuesday. Would that work better for the 3 ladies who are continuing?
Could we do that is the last week of school. Would it be possible to do the Tuesday before that, the 1st?
We could, but that's the Tuesday after Memorial
Day.
Monday. Sorry about that.
I mean, you could, but that's most people are just still straggling back into town at the Memorial Day weekend. Would you want to do it maybe on the 2nd or 3rd of June? That would be a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Mm-hmm. I could do either
The
of them.
Wednesday is good.
So June 2nd?
Or the 15th also.
Well, if we stick with the early part of the month, Mark, that puts us into the first week of 1, 2, 3, 4 of June. Is there a problem? I mean, I'd look to staff, is there a problem with doing the meeting on June 2nd?
Well, for me, because we do the expenditures through the end of the previous month, it kind of cuts it a little bit close since that's right at the end of May.
What about just cutting the expenditures off at April rather than May, Mark? Would that work?
Yes.
Okay. So we can overcome that and stick with June 2nd. So ladies, is June 2nd going to work?
It does for me.
Okay. Is the 5:30 time spot still good for everybody? Everybody like that time?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
it
so
works.
Unless there's objection, we will target 5:30 Wednesday, June 2nd for the next COC meeting. And hopefully by that point in time, we will have, if not all, but some of the new COC members coming on board to be part of the committee as part of that meeting.
If we don't have a full slate, then will we have problems with quorum?
I think what we'll do is come about the middle of May, we'll look and see where staff is with the appointments, because we would only need one more member to get to a quorum of 4. And, if it looks like we're not going to meet that and we have to reschedule, then staff will reach out to the 3 continuing COC members, which is Kathy, Fushao, and Katie, and say, okay, June 2nd is not going to work. Let's look at another date, which I think we can do without violating the Brown Act. Again, that would just be a target for the meeting. Right now, we're still targeting June 2nd. Staff has roughly 3 months to figure out what they're going to do relative to appointments. And again, we would only need one more member to attend to be able to get to a quorum. And none of staff has firmed anything yet, which is good. Okay, that takes us through item K. Any other comments from any of the COC members as item L? Not seeing hands flying up. In that case, thank you all for your participation. Thank you again for the outgoing COC members. I noticed we lost Ira somewhere along the way. But again, I'd like to extend on behalf of the district and myself, thank you for your participation, your volunteering, and just be aware you're probably going to go into a cadre list, and the district may reach out to you sometime in the future. If not, then John, I think we're ready to terminate the meeting. Thank you very much all for participating.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.